Gravity Falls. It began in 2012 and became one of my favorite series I've ever watched. I loved all the mysteries and just the way everything connected, all the characters, and the series has been done for a few years now. And just recently I was at my Target and I found a comic for the Gravity Falls kind of sequel comic. Not all of it's a sequel, some of it is, but I love the series and I just wanted to go over it. So this is going to be a review or just me talking about Gravity Falls, The Lost Legends. There is going to be spoilers for this, and this story is divided in 4 parts. Some of it takes place after, some of it takes place during the series. Throughout the whole book here, it's narrated by Shmebulok. I hope I pronounced that right, but that is the gnome from like the first episode, and kind of the gnomes throughout it. He's just the one that keeps saying Shmebulok. He's got like a white beard and whatnot, but it's like try and make it seem like one night he can talk and whatnot, and he's almost like us as the readers and whatnot, because he actually at times references like how come Gravity Falls isn't continuing, how come there isn't a new season and whatnot, which I very much like that. Which this is by Alex Hirsch and whatnot, so he is obviously knowing that we want that stuff. So the first series, our first chapter and whatnot, is it's called Face It, but it's basically, it takes place a little bit after the Pacifica Northwest mansion episode and whatnot. Basically Dipper and Mabel and Pacifica, and Pacifica comes to Dipper because she knows he has the journals and knows all this crazy knowledge about Gravity Falls and whatnot. And she has this photo day and she wants to look amazing, I guess, for that. Well, she said they're not going to help her. She basically steals the journal and summons kind of a cool monster thing. The monster's name is Mr. What's-His-Face. And he basically just steals people's faces and whatnot. So he steals her face. Well, he was going to steal Pacifica's, but the monster guy got scared, and because Dipper and Mabel entered the room, and he took Mabel's face instead. Which this leads to some of the funniest things, because she could still see with her face, but she doesn't have a face. And my favorite thing from this was Grunkle Stan comes into the living room and she's watching TV. She doesn't have a face, so she just like scribbled a freaking face on her face, and then it just shows him slowly leaving the room. I freaking love that. That was really good. But the other thing that is really great about this, so Dipper and Pacifica go chasing after Mr. What's-His-Face. They stumble upon basically the black market for paranormal stuff, which is quite cool. Throughout this, there's a bunch of Easter eggs. Like you see, like monsters selling like human parts and whatnot. You see the Society of the Blind Eye, but then you also see, there's a Slender Man in this and whatnot, and it's quite cool. This underground and whatnot. Basically, this whole thing is just Pacifica not wanting to follow her parents, I guess, and not be this super rich, stuck-up person. She eventually, at the end, accepts herself. But yeah, the first one was pretty good. The monster himself, Mr. What's-His-Face, I'm actually surprised Disney and whatnot let it, because he got pretty grotesque at parts and whatnot. So that was quite cool. It's just nice. I want these to be animated so bad. Like, they're so good. This is such a good series. The second one, which might be my favorite one, is called Comics Up. And it starts out with Zeus bringing over a bunch of comics. It has Mabel taking White out and scribbling out some of the comics and putting like one of the lines she put was "punch away my loneliness." And so basically Zeus brings over these comics and whatnot, and Grunkle Stan finds out that they got these comics. He's like, "Oh, they're a waste of time. Let's get rid of them." And he chucks them in this skull bone treasure chest. And long behold, it's cursed. And eventually he starts seeing like the comic panels above him. It's like he went into a comic book then. So it basically shoves him in the comic book. Wendy, Stanford, Dipper and Mabel, and Zeus all go in the comic after him. And this is quite cool because it goes to a bunch of different styles for comics. There's one that's almost like... I don't know what some of these are, because one of them's almost like a spy versus spy or mad. One's an anime one, where it's like a Sailor Moon schoolgirl anime thing. It's drawn in that style. See, some of these I don't know, because they're all different styles, but then it goes kind of classic comics. At one point they all get superpowers and whatnot. One of my favorite things was Zeus once between the comic panels, and he's like, "Where am I?" Now on the bottom it has him, like, because it says Disney on the bottom. It's like, what is this Disney logo, you know? So that's pretty good. Then the last one they kind of go into, it's Zeus and Grunkle Stan. It looks like the Peanuts, and it's kind of funny because it's the stand, like how it said like therapy 5 cents for the Peanuts and whatnot. It's Grunkle Stan behind the same stand, but it says Knuckle Sandwich is $5. But it basically goes, he used to love comics as a kid, and now he hates them because he tried to make a comic as a kid, but it got rejected. But he still very much likes them. And then it basically just has him accepting that. They break out of the comic. It was quite cool. Very much enjoyed it. That was a fun one, very unique. And it kind of all ends all happily because he puts out his comic that he had as a kid at the Mystery Shack, and a little kid goes and buys it, so he gets all happy because of it. The third one is Don't Dimension It, and it takes place like a couple days before the final episode of the series, where they're just patching up holes in the universe from Weird Mageddon. And it is Grunkle Stan, Stanford, Dipper, and Mabel. They're all just kind of going around sealing these holes in the universe. Mabel gets sucked into one, and it ends up sending her to a dimension of just different Mabels. You see like a Pac-Man Mabel, Sherlock Holmes Mabel, you see like a Rick and Morty one. There's a ton. It's basically any Mabel from any dimension possible. Basically, she meets one that seems exactly like her, but it's evil. Grunkle Stan and Stanford eventually find her, and the evil one takes her place. Eventually, all the Mabels work together and give the good Mabel back to them, and they send the evil one away. This one was fun. It was really quick. There's a Bob Ross Mabel too. Yeah, it's just more Gravity Falls, man. It's so good. But this one was maybe the weakest one in my opinion. And then the final one is Grunkle Stan and Stanford as kids again, another little story, and it is called The Pines Boys, The Jersey Devils in the Details. So it basically starts off with the the kid versions of Grunkle Stan and Stanford adventuring. They eventually get called by their dad. He's like, "Hey, someone stole my jewelry, golden necklace," and he immediately blames it on Grunkle Stan, which Stanford says it wasn't him. So they go on this adventure to find this missing golden chain, which Stanford eventually thinks it's this dragon-looking thing called the Jersey Devil. So they go looking for it. They find this. It's almost like the Hardy Boys as kids. They're trying to solve this mystery. Basically, they try and solve it. They go to this freak show or a carnival. Stanford gets them to kind of give them a location of where this creature is. Then they go find it. They go to a lighthouse, which is where the clue says to go. They line up the light just right. It makes a question mark on this cave. They go in it. These Hardy Boys kids show up again, and they're like, "We got photos of Stanford or Grunkle Stan taking the golden chain," which Stanford gets all mad about that, but then this dragon thing comes and attacks them. They eventually get it trapped at the carnival, and then Grunkle Stan basically says, "I was going to go polish it," and he put number 1 dad on the back, and he was going to give it to his dad, but he broke the glass while doing it. He got scared, so he ran away. So it's kind of ending on a nice note. Then they got grounded for a summer, and it shows them like scribbling like adventures and stuff in the back. And then the final shot, or panel I should say, is adult Stanford and Grunkle Stan on the Stand of War 2. Stanford's using the same golden chain that they did as a kid, and then it kind of goes over a couple panels of them fighting and adventuring and whatnot. Then the final shot or panel of the whole book is Schmebulok going and saying, "How come we can't get another season? Why can't we get a mini series or more adventures or spin-offs?" And then it finally has him not being able to talk anymore and just saying Schmebulok. I freaking love this book. There's so many little secrets. Like, you go on the back of it and you can see there's like, if you hold in the right light, you can see Bill Cipher. There's a bunch of little codes in it. They reference a bunch of little codes in this book. Freaking amazing. You need to go buy this if you love Gravity Falls. And still my favorite is the comic one. I freaking love this. So yeah, thanks for watching. It's just so